Space was quiet, but the silence was false. Far from any star, broken ships drifted slowly, glowing from old damage. Energy scars crossed the dark like frozen lightning. Several alien fleets were locked in a long and messy battle. They had fought for hours, and both sides believed the fight was almost done. The stronger fleet pushed forward with confidence, sure that no new threat could appear. They thought this place already belonged to them. On the far edge of the system, something moved. It did not shine or flare. It did not rush forward. A group of ships entered from folded space with perfect control. Their arrival made almost no noise in the void. They slowed down together and stopped as one. This was the human fleet. Inside the largest ship, Captain Han Day stood on the bridge. He was calm, his hands resting behind his back. His dark eyes watched the wide screen showing the battlefield. Wreckage, fire, and moving fleets filled the view. He did not rush to speak. He studied every movement, every pattern. Commander Lee Jisu stood nearby, reading data from multiple panels. Her voice was steady when she spoke. The enemy fleets are still focused on each other. Their long-range sensors have not detected us yet. Han Day nodded slightly. That was expected. Human ships were built to hide their presence. Heat, energy, and signal output were all reduced to the lowest level possible. To careless enemies, the fleet might as well not exist. At the center command station, Admiral Park Soong appeared on the main display. He was older, his face marked by years of command, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at the battlefield without emotion. Hold position, the Admiral said. Observe only. The order spread through the fleet. No engines flared. No weapons charged. Every human ship waited. Far ahead, the enemy fleet pressed their attack. Their ships were massive, covered in armor and bright energy shields. They moved with power, not care. Their commanders believed size alone meant victory. They laughed over open channels, mocking their weaker opponents. One enemy officer noticed a strange reading for a moment. A shadow at the edge of the sensor range. It vanished before he could report it. He blamed system noise and returned to watching the fight. Back on the human flagship, Engineer Kim Era monitored internal systems. Her fingers moved quickly, checking power levels, weapon locks, and shield strength. Everything was perfect. She allowed herself a small breath of pride. Years of human engineering had led to this moment. Pilot Choi Rin sat in her strike craft, docked inside the carrier bay. She leaned back in her seat, helmet resting beside her. Around her, other pilots waited in silence. No one joked. No one complained. They trusted the command. Rin checked her display again. Target paths were already calculated. Escape routes were marked. Even before the battle began, the humans were prepared for every outcome. On the bridge, Commander Lee Jizu continued her report. Enemy command ships are clustered near the center. Defensive screen is uneven. They are overconfident. Han Day allowed a faint smile. Overconfidence was a common weakness. Admiral Park Soong spoke again. Humans had learned long ago that battles were not won by shouting or showing strength too early. They were won by patience. We wait, the Admiral said. Let them believe they are alone. Minutes passed. Enemy ships fired again and again. Explosions lit the dark. Smaller fleets began to break apart, trying to escape. The dominant enemy force chased them, hungry for full victory. That was when Admiral Park Soong raised his hand. Prepare Phase 1. He said. Across the human fleet, systems shifted. Power flowed smoothly from engines to weapons. Shields strengthened, but remained invisible. Target locks formed silently. Engineer Kim Era spoke softly over the internal channel. All systems green. No energy spikes detected. Commander Lee Jisu turned toward Han Day. Captain, "We are ready." Han Day nodded once. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Acknowledge the Admiral." On the display, Admiral Park Soong met his eyes. "Begin when ready." The human fleet moved at first. It was only a change in position. Ships spread out, gliding into a wide arc. They did not rush forward like the enemy would have done. They flowed, each ship knowing its place. Enemy sensors finally reacted. Alerts flashed across alien command screens. Unknown fleet detected. Origin unknown. Confusion followed. Some enemy commanders laughed. Others shouted warnings. A message was sent on an open channel, filled with mockery and threat. "Unknown vessels, this battle zone is under our control. Withdraw or be destroyed." The message echoed through space. On the human flagship, no one answered. Pilot Choi Rin felt the slight vibration as her craft detached from the carrier. She smiled behind her visor. This was the moment. Strike units. Launch, came the quiet command. Human fighters surged forward like a sudden storm. Their engines burned clean and bright only when needed. They spread out fast and precise. Enemy commanders finally realized something was wrong. Their weapons turned, but too slowly. Their systems struggled to track so many fast-moving targets. Captain Han Day watched without blinking. He trusted his people. He trusted the fleet. Admiral Park Soong spoke one final order. Engage. In the next instant, space changed forever. The first human shots crossed the battlefield without sound. Thin lines of light cut through space and struck enemy ships with perfect accuracy. Shields they had held for hours against other fleets failed in seconds. Enemy vessels lost power, drifting helplessly as their systems went dark. Enemy commanders shouted orders across broken channels. They demanded reports, targets, explanations. None came fast enough. Their fleet had been built for long battles, for slow crushing force. They were not ready for this kind of attack. On the human flagship, Commander Lee Jizu spoke calmly as data flowed across her screens. Primary enemy command ships are disabled. Secondary defense grid collapsing. Captain Han Day did not raise his voice. Continue pressure. Do not overextend. Human ships obeyed with perfect timing. They advanced just enough, then shifted angles, striking from new directions. Enemy sensors could not lock on. Every time they tried, the human ships were already gone. Pilot Choi Rin weaved through enemy fire in her strike craft. Heavy beams passed behind her, missing by wide margins. She did not feel fear. Training guided her hands. She followed the attack path shown on her display. Her unit fired in short bursts, precise and controlled. Enemy weapon platforms shattered one after another. Some enemy crews ejected escape pods, stunned by how fast everything was falling apart. RIN watched one large enemy ship tried to turn its main cannons toward her group. Before it could fire, a human cruiser struck it from above. The ship broke apart in silence, pieces spinning away. Inside the human fleet, Engineer Kim Era monitored energy use. Weapon heat remained low. Shields were barely touched. She sent a brief message to command. Efficiency remains high. Admiral Park Soong nodded on the main display. Good. Maintain tempo. The enemy sent another open message. This one lacked laughter. It was sharp and angry. Human fleet, identify yourselves. This is your final warning. Again, no reply came. Instead, human ships moved closer. Their presence was now impossible to ignore. Sleek hulls reflected distant explosions. Their formation was tight, disciplined, and silent. Enemy morale began to break. Some ships fired wildly. Others tried to flee. A few attempted desperate ramming attacks, pushing engines to their limits. Commander Lee Jisu tracked every movement. She spoke clearly. Enemy units attempting escape on Vector 3. Recommend interception. Captain Hyundai considered for half a second. Intercept only command-capable ships. Let the rest go. The order spread. Human cruisers surged forward, cutting off key enemy vessels. Their weapons disabled engines with clean strikes, leaving the ships intact but powerless. On one enemy command ship, officers stared at failing screens. Their leader shouted for answers that never came. Their pride turned into fear. They had believed humans were slow and weak. They had believed old stories. Those stories were wrong. Pilot Choi Rin completed her attack run and pulled away. She watched as enemy fire grew weaker, less coordinated, less accurate. She breathed out slowly. Strike units, regroup. Came the command. RIN guided her craft back toward the carrier, passing human ships that showed no sign of damage. The battlefield was changing fast. What had once been crowded with enemy ships was now filled with drifting wreckage and silent hulks. On the flagship, Captain Hyundai studied the results. He felt no joy, no anger, only focus. Battles were not about emotion. They were about control. Commander Lee Jisoo spoke again. Enemy resistance is collapsing across all sectors. Admiral Park Soong leaned forward slightly. Then we proceed to Phase 2. Human ships adjusted formation once more. Larger vessels moved ahead, creating a solid front. Smaller ships spread wide, sealing escape paths without closing them completely. The enemy leader finally sent a private transmission. The signal was weak, full of static. We will retreat. This battle is over. The message reached the human bridge. Captain Hyundai looked at Admiral Park Soong. The admiral's face remained calm. Acknowledge receipt, the admiral said. Do not pursue beyond this system. A simple response was sent. Message received. Human fire slowed. Then it stopped. Enemy ships that still had power turned and fled. Their retreat was disorderly and fast. They did not look back. Silence returned to the battlefield. Human crews remained alert. Weapons stayed ready. Scans continued. There was no celebration. Victory was expected. Not surprising. Engineer Kim Era checked final reports. Minimal damage. No human losses. She smiled quietly. Pilot Choi Rin docked and removed her helmet. Around her, other pilots did the same. They exchanged nods, nothing more. On the bridge, Commander Lee Jisoo delivered the summary. Battle time under 1 minute from first engagement to enemy retreat. Captain Hyundai closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. Record everything. This battle will be studied. Admiral Park Soong looked at the drifting wreckage on the screen. Send the signal to Allied systems. The message traveled far, carried by human relays. Human fleet engaged hostile force. Enemy defeated. Area secured. Across distant worlds, the message was received. And with it came a new understanding. Humans had arrived, and they were not what anyone expected. The battlefield looked calm after the retreat, but the human fleet did not relax. Scanners continued to sweep every direction. Silent drones moved through wreckage, collecting data and confirming there were no hidden threats. Human ships held formation, steady and alert. Captain Hyundai remained on the bridge, eyes fixed on the wide screen. The drifting enemy ships told a clear story. The battle had been short, but the impact would last much longer. Commander Lee Jisoo reviewed incoming reports. Enemy fleet strength reduced beyond recovery. No sign of reinforcements. No traps detected. Hyundai nodded. Maintain readiness. We will not assume this is finished. Across the fleet, crews followed orders without complaint. They had trained for moments like this. Calm after victory was just as important as focus during battle. Engineer Kim Era led a team, checking shield stress and weapon alignment. Even though damage was light, she wanted every system perfect. She moved through the engine section, listening to the low hum of power cores. She stopped for a moment and looked at the data. Energy use remained stable. Heat levels were low. The fleet could fight again without delay. On the carrier deck, pilot Choi Rin walked beside her craft. Ground crews moved around her, inspecting hull panels and engine ports. She removed her gloves and flexed her fingers. The fight had been clean. Almost too clean that another pilot joined her. That was fast, he said quietly. R. Ainan nodded. Too fast for them to understand. Far from the battlefield, fleeing enemy ships carried panic with them. Inside one damaged command vessel, officers worked desperately to stabilize failing systems. Their leaders stood in silence, staring at a cracked display. They had prepared for a long war. They had expected resistance. They had not expected this. Reports came in from other systems. Rumors spread faster than signals. A human fleet had arrived and ended a major battle in moments. Many did not believe it. Others feared it. Back with the human fleet, Admiral Park Soong ordered a controlled advance deeper into the system. Not aggressive, not slow, just enough to show presence. Human ships moved together, passing broken enemy hulls. Their lights reflected on twisted metal. The message was clear without words. Commander Lee Jisoo received a new transmission. It came from a nearby neutral station. The signal carried uncertainty and caution, requesting identification. We observed the engagement. Admiral Park Soong allowed a short reply. This is the human fleet. The area is secure. The response was delayed. When it came, the tone had changed. Understood. Captain Han Dae watched the exchange. The galaxy was adjusting in real time. Engineer Kim Era sent a final internal report. All systems stable. Ready for extended operation. Han Dae acknowledged it with a nod. As the fleet advanced, human sensors detected more signals. Distant fleets were slowing down, holding position. None moved to challenge them. Some turned away. Pilot Choi Rin returned to the bridge level to give her report. She stood straight, hands at her sides. Strike units report full success. No losses. Admiral Park Soong looked at her for a moment, then nodded. Good work. Ein felt a quiet sense of pride. Praise was rare. When it came, it mattered. The fleet reached the center of the system. There, they stopped. Not to rest, but to be seen. Captain Han Dae spoke softly. Record all channels. Monitor all reactions. What followed was silence. Not empty silence, but a heavy one. Ships across nearby space watched the human fleet and waited. In distant command centers, leaders studied recordings of the battle. They slowed the footage. They counted seconds. They saw how fast the enemy collapsed. Fear spread, but so did respect. Back on the flagship, Commander Lee Jisoo noticed a new signal pattern. Multiple long-range transmissions being sent outward. The news was spreading. Han Dae said nothing. This was expected. Admiral Park Soong addressed the fleet through a closed channel. You have done well. Remember this moment. Not for pride, but for responsibility. From now on, eyes will be on us. The message was received in silence. Engineer Kim Era leaned against a console and allowed herself a slow breath. Years of work. Years of testing. It had all led here. Pilot Choi Rin looked out through a viewing port. The stars seemed unchanged, but she knew better. The balance had shifted. Another message arrived from an allied system. Short and careful. We acknowledge your strength. We request dialogue. Admiral Park Soong considered it. He looked at Captain Han Dae. Han Dae answered quietly. Prepare a response. We will speak, The reply was sent dot as the human fleet held position. Small repair craft continued their work. Data was stored. Lessons were recorded. Every detail mattered. Commander Lee Jisoo compiled a timeline. From first engagement to enemy retreat. Less than 1 minute. She marked it clearly. This would be remembered. Far away. Enemy survivors gathered in distant space. Their leaders argued and blamed each other. Some demanded revenge. Others warned against it. One truth stood above all others. Humans were no longer unknown. On the bridge, Captain Han Day watched the stars. He felt no triumph, only purpose. This battle was not the end. It was the beginning. The human fleet remained at the center of the system, steady and unmoving. Time passed, but discipline did not fade. Sensors stayed active. Crews rotated without breaking rhythm. Every ship acted as if the battle could return at any second. Captain Han Day walked the bridge slowly. He watched officers work in silence. No one needed encouragement. The fleet understood the weight of what had happened. Commander Lee Jisoo reviewed long-range data. Signals continued to spread outward. Many systems were listening. Some were afraid. Some were curious. Multiple fleets have altered course, she said. None are approaching. Han Day nodded. They are choosing caution. Admiral Park Soom appeared on the display. His voice was calm but firm. This system will remain under observation. We will not provoke. We will not retreat. The order carried meaning. The humans were not claiming territory. They were making a statement. Engineer Kim Era supervised deeper inspections. Small repair drones moved along hulls, sealing minor stress lines. Weapon arrays were cleaned and reset. She checked logs again and again. Everything held. She paused beside a viewport and looked at the broken enemy ships drifting far away. So much strength wasted on pride, she thought. On the carrier deck, Pilot Choi Rin sat with other pilots. They spoke quietly, sharing details of the fight. Not boasting, learning. They were fast, Rin said. But they did not think. Another pilot nodded. They relied on size. In looked back at her ship. Humans relied on each other. A new transmission arrived. This one carried multiple signatures. Several nearby systems were speaking together. We request terms for safe passage. We will not interfere. Commander Lee Jisoo read the message aloud. Admiral Park Soon answered without delay. Passage granted. Maintain distance. The reply was short, clear. One by one, foreign ships adjusted course. They moved wide around the human fleet, careful not to cross invisible lines. The message spread further. Humans controlled the battlefield even after the fighting ended. Captain Han Day watched the movement on the screen. Power did not always come from force. Sometimes it came from restraint. Later, another signal appeared. This one was weaker. It came from a damaged enemy vessel still drifting nearby. Life signs were low, but present. Commander Lee Jisoo hesitated. They are requesting assistance. The bridge grew quiet. Admiral Park Soon studied the data. He took a moment before speaking. Send medical support. Escort only. No weapons discharge. The order surprised some, but no one argued. Human support craft moved out. They approached the damaged ship slowly, shields raised, but weapons cold. Drones entered the broken hull, delivering aid. From the enemy vessel, shocked voices spoke in broken tones. They had expected destruction, not help. Captain Han Day observed the operation. Strength without mercy created endless enemies. Humans had learned that lesson early. Engineer Kim Era monitored the rescue. She adjusted power flows to support the medical units. Everything worked smoothly. Pilot Choi Rin watched the support craft return. She felt something shift inside her. The battle had proven human power. This proved human choice. Far away, observers recorded everything. Not just the fight, but what followed. The galaxy was learning more than one lesson. Hours passed. The system grew quiet again. The human fleet remained. Commander Lee Jisoo compiled new reports. Allied systems are requesting talks. Neutral systems are requesting protection agreements. Hyundai looked at Admiral Park Soong. The Admiral nodded. We will listen. Carefully. A secure channel opened. Faces appeared on the screen. Leaders from distant systems spoke with respect, even fear. We saw what you did. We wish to avoid conflict. Admiral Park Soong answered evenly. Then do not seek it. The talks were brief. Humans did not demand tribute. They did not threaten. They stated boundaries and expectations. Peace was possible. But weakness was not an option. As the discussions ended, the fleet received one final alert. Long-range scans detected movement far beyond the system. A large force, still distant, changing direction after receiving reports. Commander Lee Jisoo frowned. They are slowing down. Hyundai understood. They had chosen not to test humanity. Admiral Park Soong addressed the fleet again. Today, you were seen. Tomorrow, you will be remembered. Remain ready. The message echoed through every ship. Engineer Kim Era shut down her final diagnostic. Systems at full readiness. Pilot Choi Rin returned to her craft and ran a hand along its hull. The metal was cool and steady. The stars outside seemed brighter. Now. Not because they had changed, but because the humans had. The human fleet prepared to move. Orders passed quietly through secure channels. Ships adjusted alignment, engines warming with controlled power. The system had learned its lesson, and now it was time to leave a final mark. Captain Hyundai stood on the bridge as stars slowly shifted on the main screen. He felt the weight of command, but it did not slow him. He had been trained for moments when choices mattered beyond battle. Commander Lee Jisoo spoke with steady focus. All ships report ready. No hostile movement detected. Hyundai nodded. Maintain formation. We depart together. Admiral Park Soong appeared one last time on the display. His expression was calm, but there was meaning behind his eyes. What happened here will shape the next era, he said. Remember why we fight. Not to destroy, but to protect our future. The message was brief, but it stayed with every crew member. Engineer Kim Era oversaw final system checks. Power cores ran smooth and balanced. Weapons were secured, but ready. Shields adjusted for travel. She allowed herself a quiet smile. The fleet was perfect. She sent the final report. All systems optimal. On the carrier deck, pilot Choi Rin climbed into her craft. She paused before sealing the cockpit, looking out across the fleet. Human ships filled space with calm strength. No fear. No rush. Rin sealed the canopy and took her place. Escort position confirmed. She reported. The fleet began to move. As they advanced toward the edge of the system. Long-range sensors detected multiple observers. Distant ships watched, but did not follow. None challenged. None blocked their path. Commander Lee Jisoo tracked the signals. They are recording us. Hyundai replied evenly. Let them. The fleet passed the last drifting enemy wreckage. Support drones finished marking locations for later salvage by neutral parties. Humans did not take trophies. They took lessons. Beyond the system. Open space waited. Before the fleet could jump, a final transmission arrived. It came from several allied and neutral systems together. Your actions prevented further war. We acknowledge your strength. Admiral Park Soong authorized. A response. We will defend ourselves and those under our protection. Nothing more. The reply was sent. The channel closed. Silence followed. Captain Hyundai gave the final order. Prepare jump. Human ships aligned perfectly. Energy built in controlled waves. Space bent gently around them. In distant command centers across the galaxy, leaders watched the feed. They saw how calm the fleet remained, how precise every movement was. They understood the meaning. Humanity did not need long wars. They ended them quickly. The fleet vanished from the system in a clean flash, leaving only quiet space behind. Days later, reports spread everywhere. Analysts studied recordings again and again. They timed the battle. They counted losses. They compared old data with new reality. The conclusion was always the same. Human fleets were decisive. Human command was unified. Human response time was unmatched. In enemy territories, plans changed. Attacks were delayed. Some were canceled entirely. Fear did what weapons could not. In allied systems, hope grew stronger. Protection agreements formed. Trade routes adjusted. Human presence became a stabilizing force. On Earth, news of the battle reached command halls and quiet homes alike. The fleet returned without celebration. Medals were not needed. The mission had been enough. Captain Hahn Day submitted his final report. Clear, honest, detailed. Commander Lee Jisu archived battle data for future training. Every second mattered. Engineer Kim Era returned to her lab, already thinking of improvements. Perfection was never final. Pilot Choi Rin walked under open sky again, feeling the ground beneath her feet. She looked up at the stars, knowing they were no longer distant threats. They were responsibilities. Far away, the enemy survivors gathered in silence. Their leaders no longer spoke of conquest. They spoke of caution, of borders, of avoiding human space at all cost. One truth had become impossible to deny. When the human fleet entered the battlefield, the fight was already over. Not because of rage, not because of numbers, but because humanity had learned how to act as one, and the galaxy would remember that minute forever.